And Muli, before we get into our conversation in studio, as we get to the top of the hour, we are going live to the Chiromo Funeral Parlor, where Hassan Mugambi has been since morning, as he follows up on the identification of bodies there following the fire at the Moi Girls High School here in Nairobi. We just earlier heard about the progress that has been made so far. Hassan, what can you tell us at this hour?
Well, Lillian, so far the parents have been allowed to start viewing the bodies of the students, the 9 students who were brought here after the inferno at the Moi Girls High School in Nairobi. But then again, just before they are actually allowed, that is the final stage that is taking place here. But before they are allowed to view the bodies, they are actually encouraged and given psychosocial support by the Kenya Association of Counseling Psychologists, as well as the Red Cross Kenya and the St. John's Ambulance. They are all here just to give support to the parents in terms of counseling, and then they go in and surrender their DNA samples to the chief government chemist, who is also here undertaking that particular exercise. And he actually said that they will be collecting samples from the mouth of the either parents of the students whose bodies are here, so that they can match them, because most of the bodies have been burnt beyond recognition. No one can just ascertain who this particular person is. And then once they surrender their DNA samples to the government chemist, who said that it will be a very simple exercise that will just concentrate on collection of the saliva mostly before they undertake the matching of the DNA, so that they can ascertain which body belongs to which parent. Then after that is now when they head in to see or rather to view the bodies. And we have seen several of those that came out of the funeral home there to just come out, and the way they were reacting to whatever it is that they saw is a kind of one of a kind of reaction that you can get from a parent. It's an excruciating pain that they are just going through here, unbelievable of what they actually saw inside that particular pathology table that is inside there, being undertaken of course by the chief government pathologist Johansen Oduor, who is also here. But then again, of interest is what the chief government chemist said today, because of the way the DNAs are shared. He called upon those that are here to just surrender the biological parents. That's the mother or the father. If the both of them are not there, then they go now to the siblings, the exact siblings, because that is how the DNA is shared among the biological line, as so it is called, because they say that 50% of your DNA it belongs to your father and 50% to your mother. So that is why they need the direct biological parents of those who are claiming that they have lost their children in that particular inferno. We will be keeping an eye on that, and we'll be also speaking to some of the parents here who will gather some strength to speak to us, to just tell us how they related to their children and what they remember of their children who have lost their lives in that unfortunate incident that took place the night of Saturday this week.
And indeed, a very unfortunate turn of events, like Hassan Mugambi reported there from the Chiromo Funeral Parlor here in Nairobi County. Once again, as Citizen TV, we condole with the families that lost their children in that deadly fire. Fire outbreaks at Kenyan boarding schools and subsequent loss of lives of innocent children are not a new phenomenon. In studio with us this morning, Janet, I think it's been a long morning. So good morning and welcome. This is Janet Mudhoni Oko. She's the National Coordinator, Elimu Yetu Coalition. Janet, no parent should ever have to bury their children. And particularly when you take your child to institutions of learning, you know, these boarding schools where you actually put your child under the care of an institution, and then such an unfortunate, we call it unfortunate because it could have been avoided, happens. Let's begin with why boarding schools are such common targets. This is not the first time. There was the incident at Changuli and many other schools that have experienced such. And the fatalities, of course, have not been in as many schools, but there have been fatalities. Why are boarding schools such common targets?
Thank you, Lillian. We continue to condole with the families that have lost their loved ones, and just wishing quick recovery to those that are still recuperating in hospital. I think this has become is becoming more and more disturbing, especially because we are beginning to think that probably the way our society operates, where we have so much pressure, you know, mostly on the young people, and at times we have not been able to set up you know, the right dialogue, you know, measures that can help us have a conversation with these young people that then really sort of identifies with them, hears them out, and not necessarily does what they want, but guides them to become, you know, full adults. I think that is one of the other areas that probably could lead us to where we are now.
And you're saying that because investigations have pointed out to the fact that arson could have been the most probable cause of the fire, and a suspected link to a student. And therefore, this likely to have come intentionally or unintentionally from a student, because we do know that these dormitories have a lot of immersion heaters. They have illegal wirings when the children want to heat their water or their tea or their food. Talking about the triggers, what could have been the likely triggers?
We of course continue to wait for the report from government that probably we can quote reliably, but in its absence we rely on what you know, we are collecting from the parents of the affected, and you know, as recorded in newspapers and so on and so forth, and you get a picture of a girl who had wanted something. She would have wanted a transfer, but then probably it was not forthcoming, probably she was not engaged in a way that could find out why do you think this place is not the best for you, considering that the school here is more in Nairobi Girls. It's not your ordinary school. It's a school where every other parent would want their child to go, but this particular child feels like she doesn't fit here, or she doesn't feel comfortable here, and then she wants attention, she wants to be listened to. So I think it's really unfortunate, and it is not hitting us for the first time. We've had such cases like Nyeri High, where you have boys burning prefects. Probably they think they are high-handed and things like those. But I think it just points out to what we are saying, that we have not established very strong mechanisms as to how we can be able to listen to each other, irrespective of whatever opinion or whatever view that you hold. Can we be able to listen to you, and you also listen to us, so that together we can find out what is the common point, you know, for all of us. And this coming at a time when these children had just reported, you know, in school, there are 1,100 of them. And so you cannot really say that at that particular time the school could have failed to listen to her. I do not know, because she had come from home, and so there are so many things, you know, at play here. You don't know the circumstances, that, you know, the pressures that probably she was going through, and so on and so forth. So it's a combination of so many things, and we really, I've really avoided so much putting the blame on the administration of the school, especially as regards to nabbing this issue early before it happens.
We'll talk about how our society is conditioned, and perhaps the effect that that might have on our children, even as they are in this boarding facilities. Before that, the fact that a committee was set up in 2016 to conduct investigations following a spate of fires, little has been done to implement its recommendations. I'll point out in particular the fact that in this particular school, it was found the dormitory has no fire equipment, no exit doors, their windows are sealed with metal grills, there are no smoke detectors, there are no fire alarms, no fire extinguishers, and the students have never been drilled on fire management. Talking about the management, because you talk about the fact that you don't want to really you know, put the school's administration on the spot, but truly, these children have been put into these institutions by parents who trust that their children are safe here. These recommendations were made, and therefore you would imagine therefore that the facility or the school would actually put these recommendations in place. And they're simple: fire equipment, exit doors, no metal grills on the windows, there's no smoke detectors, no fire alarms, no fire extinguishers, and most basically not even a simple fire drill. The hero who died yesterday actually died as she ran right through the fire after saving her fellow students.
I would hate to say this, but I'll say it anyway, because at some point some things have to be said. There are two levels here as to why this thing happened. You really may not be able to blame the school, but now accident has happened. What does the Ministry of Education safeguards? What are the guidelines? Because accidents can happen, but there are policies of the Ministry of Education that tells you how a dormitory should look like. That is where I generate a problem with the leadership of the school. And I also have a very big problem with the parents of that particular school, because this is not the first time. Probably your daughter has been there for 3-4 years. This is when you are realizing that the school does not have an exit door. Where have you been all along? Because I think sometimes it's also unfair for some of us to jump at the pulpit and start throwing the blame to others. It should be shared accordingly. And here we're talking about the school administration, because a school should be run according to the policies of the Ministry of Education. In this regard, the particular management of the school has failed, because the doors should have been, the exit door, both doors should be open at any particular time. We get reports that the gates were locked and the matron had gone with the keys and so on and so forth.
And so yet, ideally, we should have school representatives, at least teachers, who live within a school compound.
So that is irregular, and we would expect somebody to take responsibility. Number two, there is a Department of Inspectorate. There is somebody who was supposed to have discovered that this school has not adhered to the set policies of the Ministry of Education. Who is that? They should also take their part of responsibility. Let's also talk about the parents. What's your involvement here? Is it now that you have discovered the dormitory was congested? You knew it all along, but you can do anything to have your child in that particular school. That is the moral of our society. You go to a school, it is already congested, but you would do anything to have your child in that particular school.
That's a good
so
point.
we cannot have some people shifting blame to some other people. Let's try and ask, what is my level of responsibility? What part did I play?
Now, each time such an incident occurs, Kenyans are told investigations will be conducted, but there seems to be little action that's taken to avert, such incidents, school fires in particular. This is not the first time. And these are children that are perishing in these unfortunate fires, which, like we earlier said, could have been avoided. Investigations are currently underway. We are yet to see a conclusion to this investigation, and indeed we are yet to see what the Ministry of Education will do to ensure that such incidents are never reported again in this country.
I think, Lillian, we have seen these things happening in this country, and the children of our country have paid dearly because of the mistakes of us adults. It is us that were supposed to have secured the place in the first place, but we didn't do that. And sometimes we like sweeping issues under the carpet. For example, lives have been lost. Who takes responsibility, and what is the responsibility that they take? Honestly, if we do not have people behind bar for negligence, I will have a very big problem with the Ministry of Education. We would want people to learn their lessons and to take the responsibilities that have been bestowed on them very, very seriously. Because these omissions that we are talking about, they are omissions that are very well documented by policies of the Ministry of Education. Why could you be running a school contrary to the rules of the Ministry of Education? And these are some of the things that, when we say that some of these big schools do not, because some of them behave as though it is a privilege for a child to be in that school, but it is not.
So how to handle the long-lasting detrimental consequences? These are children who've lost, their friends. There's a chunk of them that still have to go back to that school and study within the same environment. They're traumatized. the thought of going back there really not something that they would even like to entertain right now. Their parents as well seem, of course, as would be expected, traumatized. Therefore, how to handle these consequences moving forward. It is a reputable school by all means, and therefore how to handle those effects, the effects of this unfortunate tragedy.
I think the first point is to assure, especially the children that will be left in those facilities, that everything will be okay and is okay, moving forward. And I think some of these security measures that we are talking about should be read out to the learners themselves. Since we parents and government have not been able to monitor the implementation, the consumers of the services, for example, here being the learners in that particular institution, they should know. And I want to recommend here, and we've recommended to the Ministry of Education, when you're checking into a boarding school, can the child be given the safety guidelines of the school, so that themselves, even the prefects, can be able to inspect and say, yes, we have these grills, we have these doors, and our windows are this way, and so that, because I think we have failed them so much terribly, that they now have to take responsibility, because it involves their own life. None of us, we sleep in the comforts of our houses, but we do not mind leaving our children in dormitories that we do not even know how safe they are for them. And one of the other things that needs to happen very quickly with the Ministry of Education, we need an audit, Lillian. We can't proceed this way. We want to know how many schools have met the safety guidelines that the ministry has put up in the first place. How many of them have not? What is being done? Because if we wake up another day to such kind of a tragedy, I think we are going to be the most irresponsible adults of this world.
I thank you for your time. Janet Muthoni Oko, she's the National Coordinator, Elimu Yetu Coalition, as we continue to send our condolences to the parents and indeed the family and friends that lost their 9 children in that fire at the Moi Girls Nairobi High School here in Nairobi. We are coming to the top of the hour on Citizen Extra. Brian is with us in studio with the day's trends. Brian, what's up?
All right, a very good morning to you, Lillian Zisamuli. Let's take a look at the